welcome. Warren, everyone's really excited to have us back together, the duo, I would say. But most importantly, tonight, we're talking about a very important, life skill, I'd almost say. And we're talking all about common law. And it's going to be a little bit of an interview tonight because you're a real expert in this area, Warren. But most importantly, I think so many people are confused in this space, especially since COVID happened. We've got groups popping up everywhere. So we're ready to just go through all of the noise and really set some things straight. Would you agree with me?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's basically the whole idea of this.
Yeah.
Tell the truth,
yeah.
what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I think this is really important. And please put it in the chat if you resonate. I don't know who here really didn't know much about common law or didn't really look into it pre-COVID, because I'd probably say it's an overwhelming amount. Not everyone, but put it in the chat below if it was something that you didn't really even look into. Yeah, so a lot of people knew about it, but they didn't really look into it. And then who here, put your hand up if you kind of found out about it during COVID and then you just started going to these groups and then you realized you got overwhelmed because they wanted you to do all these crazy out there things that you just felt that were a bit too much for you to do. We're getting overwhelming, yeah.
Not a few.
And guess what? I am also in that same boat. So it was when I met Warren and the team. I honestly, it changed for me dramatically. So yeah, so everyone's saying they found out about common law during COVID, busy over COVID. Yeah, okay, so this is all things, and this is really why we're coming back to this place, right, Warren? This space of clarity, space of let's learn the truth and let's get down to practicality, okay?
Yep, agreed.
Now, we are going to be running a common law course, but what I really want to do is ask you a few questions that I really feel are going to be very pertinent to everyone here. So are you okay with that, Warren? Is there anything you want to say before we get into it?
No, look, just to start off by saying the reason I'm doing this is really quite simple. I grew up being bullied. When I ended up going into uni, one of the reasons I did law was I've always liked justice. I've been a big believer in fair play. I've also wanted to feel empowered, so I would never feel kind of intimidated, small, or disempowered again. Obviously, there was more to it than that. I had to end up doing my own inner work on that side as well. But certainly, it helped me get started. I became a lawyer, and the biggest thing that I realized was just there's so much misinformation out there. I've been using this stuff for years, a mixture of being a lawyer and also just having been involved in genuine common law teaching where I was taught the truth about law. And there's so many myths about common law. So hopefully the first question you'll ask me about what it really means. But basically with common law, realizing that I learned how to balance it out between, like as I tell people, how to become Neo and Morpheus, where you can plug into the matrix and operate within it, but at the same time get out when you need to. And I think it tends to be these two extremes. Either you're kind of in the matrix or, oh no, you can never go in the matrix or you're evil kind of thing. And so the whole idea is to empower people and to be, and this is what helped me get through COVID pretty straightforwardly on the practical issue. Obviously, I had grief and sadness and what happened with the whole thing. But yeah, there's so many things that in terms of it, knowing your rights can change your life. And it's so difficult to even, I just want to talk for hours about the benefits and how much it can change your life and being able to be empowered with everything from day-to-day issues with kids in school being bullied, right through to debt collectors chasing you, right through to your bank giving you a hard time on the mortgage, right through to a pesky client who won't pay you in your business, right through to a government who's pressuring you, right through to harassment you're getting in the workplace, or even like with my mum's best friend years ago, getting stalked by a guy and getting rid of him. It's just the greatest skill to learn, getting away from sentences you don't want. It's just the best skill that you can ever learn. There's a lot of fun you can have in the process.
Yeah, and that's great. And I will start with, for those who everyone's pretty much put their hand up saying, yeah, they've started to look into it. Where does common law fit in today's society now with all of the changes and everything that's happened and the wake-up call that people are having? Does it still have its place in which it's solid and it's truth, or is it evolving slightly?
Look, the way to think of it, it's a little bit like the newest thing is artificial intelligence, AI. And of course, many IT developers and experts are probably horrified. People talk about AI and the general issue and don't really quite know what goes on. In common law, it's such a it's become almost like a catchphrase, like your common law rights, which is kind of a code word for fuck you, government. I'm just going to live my own life and not do anything you tell me. And because I'm very angry, I'm very distressed, and I feel very disempowered. That's what common law means to many people. But really what it is that common law means common sense. That was the original thing. It's like basically, if you've got a big society and a big community of any kind, like an Aboriginal community living out in the bush or living wherever, a society of people living in a particular country, a huge amount of people living in a city, you can't just have a free-for-all. You do have to have some law and regulation, because imagine if everyone could do what they wanted to do. I wake up one day, feel in a bad mood, so go and kill you, Jazz. I'm sure you wouldn't be all that happy about, if I did that to you. So basically, there's certain I know, could try. There's certain limits on human behaviour, which instinctively within us says a free-for-all, is basically not the way to go. There has to be some limits on human behaviour. And where does this go? So in an orderly society, I want to know that I can live in my house. Someone's not going to break into my house and basically steal my stuff and do bad shit to me and my kids. I want to know that if I'm driving on the road, someone's not going to be driving as drunk as an absolute skunk, hit my car, and leave people injured, crippled or whatever else. I want to know that, someone's harassing me and extorting me and sending me nude pictures of myself. Not that would bother me, but for many people, you can actually do something about it and say, hang on a sec, no, you're not just going to go and send my pictures everywhere without a consequence. So inherent within it, every one of us is a common law sense that says there's certain things that's not allowed to my persona. In other words, to me, to my individual Warren Butt, the natural man, or Jasmine, the natural woman. So life, liberty, property. In other words, to my life, my body. In other words, you can't just walk up and beat the shit out of me because you're having a bad day. You can't just come and violate my body as a woman, if I'm a woman, because sexually you feel like you want to do something to me. We go, no, that's not going to happen. You can't do certain things to kids under a certain age. It goes, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. And then there's certain other things like that. And then, of course, property. Inherent in a good society is that, if you go and buy a house, that people just can't walk in and say, hey, I decided I like your house, I'm kicking you out. So property rights come in. And then so you just turn up and someone's driving your car. Oh, no, I just felt like driving your car. So common law, life, liberty, property is that I have the right as a human being to my life to be valued, within limits. Like, obviously, if I'm going around trying to kill others, then maybe the better good over supersedes me, and death penalty may or may not apply, depending on what people believe. But overall, I have the right to live without basically people thinking they're in the mood to kill me. I have the right to my liberty. In other words, if I want to move around relatively freely, within limits, by and large, unless there's a greater genuine community good, like let's say there really was a genuinely deadly virus ravaging society and I had it and it could kill people, then common law would say to me, well, stay the fuck home, Warren, and don't infect other people. Not because I've got some flu virus, which some government dude says or whatever else, but inherently there's a life, there's a liberty, and there's a property thing. So that's what common law is by and large about, and it's still relevant. What's complicated things is government corporations and statutes that have come in and started going like bang, 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 and bringing in laws, because you can contract out of your common law rights. So as an example, I joined the military. The military says you can't join us unless you agree, because we want order. If you play up, you'll get warned once and then you'll be locked in a brig for a day, like without trial. We don't have time to do you a trial. So you go, okay, and you join the military and you sign it. And all ancient legal commentaries like Blackstone legal rights, that was acknowledged. Or you go on a ship, admiralty law. So, hey, you agree to certain rules on the ship. State of emergencies came in because it generally was agreed in society, if a major war is happening and you've got people coming in and then there's a big fire and cyclone hitting at the same time, you might temporarily agree for 3 or 4 days to give complete power to someone to just quickly take charge and make sure there's civil order until things settle. That's the spirit behind a lot of this kind of stuff and why people contract out of their common law rights. You're dealing with now a fraud perpetuated on a major level where corporations and businesses have coercively kind of manipulated people into all kinds of contracts and things that are so vast and broad and confusing that people no longer have any idea what's law and what's not anymore. That's a long-winded explanation, but I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And within Australia, as you've seen, with most of these groups that have popped up, Warren, do you believe that most of them are doing it with good intention? Do you think that a lot of it's happening for misinformation? Like, what's your take? Because I know you've seen a lot of it, I've seen a lot of it, and I'd just like to hear your take.
Look, it's like cryptocurrencies. I mean, cryptos has got a place to play, but as soon as cryptos is going up, suddenly everyone's a crypto millionaire expert, offering you a passive income of 10% a month, and everyone's doing it. And then there's a recession, or like BlockFi goes bad, and then everyone's suddenly backing off quick smart and saying, oh, oops, yikes, So there's a lot of self-appointed experts. There's always an Uber driver who'll give you a stock tip, that kind of stuff. Most common law people have good intentions, but they don't know what they're doing. And I mean, you wouldn't take financial advice from someone who's broke. You wouldn't take health advice from someone who's overweight, really sick, and looks really terrible. Some of our chief health officers, you wouldn't take advice from, in computers from someone who's done a quick 1 hour course on the internet. You want someone who's got experience, who's done that kind of stuff. So most people in common law have good intentions, but they've learned a few little hacks and think they've got the answers, whereas there's a bit more involved in that. I mean, yeah, there are some hacks, but it's a bit more involved than just, hey, fuck the system, I'm not part of it, I'm getting out of it. It's more complicated than that. And many people, I say to them, are you actually aware how much you're contracted in certain situations? So.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Now, there is a story of your own personal experience. Let's talk about money, where you were behind in mortgage payments. So could you share, knowing your own common law rights, how that helped you to deal with that situation with the banks chasing you down? When you were behind, you were falling behind your mortgage payments.
Oh, yeah. Years ago, I had my one kind of really bad business failure because there are many reasons. I was a bit arrogant. I had some business partners that didn't quite follow through, 15 years ago. No one's fault really but me. I wasn't fully empowered enough. And I ended up in a situation where my common law and legal rights saved me from a whole lot of my debts, but still left me licking my wounds and left me really having a lot of issues kind of getting back on my feet. And, paying the mortgage at the time was pretty heavy. I had everyone, just lots of people chasing me for debt. And I can remember at the time, I learned from all my common law stuff about how you could hold a bank off for up to 18 months, even 2 years from taking a house. I thought, well, I mean, why don't I try it out right now for a bit of fun? And so I just decided to try it out. So I just stopped paying the bank and see what would happen. And sure enough, they started, after a while they were messaging me, and then I was getting notices, and they said, we'll issue a default notice. So I did the first thing. I rang up the hardship team and I went through a process there and used my legal notices to apply for hardship relief. And of course, as I expected, I got knocked back. So then when they're about to issue me a default, I waited, and then I got an ombudsman involved, and I lodged a complaint, which put in abeyance for many months. And then I did a couple of other things after that finished. And I kept delaying it. And eventually, finally, they got the default notice in, and then eventually went before court. And I ended up saying, yeah, fine, look, I'll pay it. I'm back on my feet right now. I paid a few penalties, but the penalties was worth it because I'd proven well and truly, that you could hold off the banks quite easily, I have heard of people, and I have met someone who's been able to successfully get mortgages waived. I don't teach that because I've never successfully done it. So I wouldn't integrity be living by experience. I'd be living by theory. I have met a guy who's generally done it in New Zealand, and he has done it once in Australia, but he really knew what he was doing, and it was a unique situation. And it is possible from what I understand, but yeah, it's something that I don't know enough about, but I can help people significantly with something like that. So common law helped me a lot with that.
Amazing. Yeah, so practical, because I could imagine, especially with all the interest rises, there's a lot of pinches on family and pressure right now. So it's amazing. Yeah,
you can force the bank to at least negotiate with you and not just kind of hunt you down and distress you, where at least you can buy some time to basically pay the debt back. And there was a quick funny story I'll share where one of my friends came to me very upset, who you know, but I won't name him. And he was very worked up, and I said, look, tell me what's going on. And he said, oh, look, I haven't paid my mortgage for 2 weeks and I'm beside myself because the bank's going to take my house. And I pissed myself laughing. And he goes, why are you laughing at me? And I said, I said, you silly boy. I said, they can't get near you for months if you know what you're doing. I said, really? And he goes, I didn't know that. And I said, well, stop carrying on like a baby. I'll help you. Don't worry. And I said, how long will it take you to be able to pay it again? And he said, oh, about 3 months. I said, yeah, easy. And got it sorted out, got back on his feet, and yeah.
Common sense, right? Communication goes a long way, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
And I think people tend to bury their heads and they don't want to face it. But once again, common sense, communication, getting out there, using the rights that you do have is really important. So very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you knew a teacher who was still able to get paid during the mandates. How was this person able to do this? Are you able to shed some light here?
Oh, look, very, very clever. I mean, of course, her husband's a bit of a clever little, fella, he and I would compare notes, and he just basically did exactly what I did with the whole COVID mandates and got through them relatively unscathed by just reading the things and understanding them. So he went through and read the employment contract from cover to cover. He does know law. He's taught himself a lot of law, common law and legal rights. He knows it really well. And when he read it, he said to her, you know what, I reckon they have to pay you if you turn up for work, as an example. So he showed her what to do. She followed a series of steps where she basically made sure she every day turned up for work. They rejected it because she wasn't vaccinated. She went home. And they implemented certain clauses, served certain notices upon the school, and the school was snookered. And they got very peed off about it, but they had no choice, had to legally keep paying. So the whole time in the mandates, kept getting paid, took on another job on the side as well while I was doing it, and increased their income. It was just brilliant. Wow. That's a good man up my own heart, man. It's awesome.
Wow. So just reading a contract and actually just, going through things instead of believing what you've been told as absolute truth, because it's not always the case.
There's a really good song which I learned when I did my common law course 20 years ago. The one which I mentioned, 20 years ago, paid $250 for it, which is the exact same price I'm charging now, and getting 13 weeks rather than 7 weeks. But the song goes something like this, and it's so true. It goes, a child who knows their common law rights shall do well in life. A child who knows their common law rights shall do well in life. A child who doesn't know their common law rights, they are vulnerable to addiction, coercion, divorce, suicide. So I taught my kids common law rights from young. I said, Grace, guess what? Do you think they got through the mandates and sailed through it? Do you think anyone coerced them into crap they didn't want to do?
No.
Good song, isn't it? Don't you love the song?
That's an amazing song. I just really feel that Ed and James need to come on live and sing that. That's all. I just feel that would really finish.
Oh, I think they should come on and sing it. They should dance, but I don't know.
Come on, Ed and James. We know you're watching. We know you're there.
Who likes my singing as much as my speaking? If you say yes, then I'll love you. And
just say yes, please, for the love of God.
If you don't, then you'll kind of go to a second tier.
Jeffrey and Monique said yes, unfortunately.
Awesome. I'm actually a piano player.
Unfortunately.
I know, I'm actually a piano player, as you know, and a singer. I did that for years. So yeah, I'm going to. Oh, Ben, look, Ben, I love you now. Australian and Idol. Jeffrey singing pole dance. I can pole dance while singing that song next time.
Oh my goodness, let's not start on the pole dancing. That's got nothing to do with common law tonight. Unless I can bring it in, I definitely will, I promise, okay? Now, let's talk about a big one that everyone is going to be really concerned about. And I talk about it all the time to people. All right, banks, credit cards, debts. What are people to do in these times that things are tough? They're not so sovereign right now. What can they do with common law to help themselves just...
See, I love this topic because so many people get harassed by banks, by debit card, by credit cards, debt collectors. Two different subjects. So we'll kind of cover them separately. So I'll cover the debt collector. You can ask me that question next, okay? So let's focus on the banks and credit cards. So credit cards are an interesting beast because banks basically, with their little fractional reserve banking system, can print the things out of nothing and just lend it to you and get interest for really not doing an awful lot. I mean, they buy the money from basically from the international banks or whatever. Now, essentially, if you understand that, let's just say that someone gets defaults on their credit card and can't meet their payments and they end up going broke or into insolvency or into needing a debt repayment arrangement through a financial consulting thing, counseling service. The average, this will shock you, but the average creditor in a bankruptcy, guess how much percentage, Jasmine, they get back on the debt, if someone goes bankrupt? It's 3%.
Really?
Yeah. So that means if a bank is owed $10,000 and you go bankrupt, then they'll only get $300 on average. Often they'll get nil, but that's on average. They don't get much at all. And they know that. So commercially, it's often much more profitable for them to get something than get nothing at all. Now, keep in mind, they do have checks and balances to stop people trying it on them. So many people can't used to come back to me and say, oh, it doesn't work. I said, yeah, you've got to go through various kind of gatekeepers, and the front people have no idea they do this. But if you get through to the right people, their hardship and their managers there, they're very aware of this kind of stuff. And I've never had a bank that wouldn't renegotiate a credit card if I pushed hard enough. So for a little while, I made some extra cash years ago doing that for people. I'd say to them, if I can cut your credit card down, let's say you owed 50,000, because people come to me, if I can get your credit card down and cut it in half, 25 grand off, would you pay me 5 grand? They said, you bet. I said, done, let's do it. I said, only paid on results, and I would do it for them. And I would generally what would happen is that you can generally get up to 45% relatively comfortably. I mean, some banks are very hard. There were a couple of banks that the 25% often you just got to accept that. The secret is you've got to come back to them with a deal where they see they're going to get paid faster. So it's kind of like, well, you can keep collecting from me for the next 5 years, and this is where I'm at, and I'm gonna look at it and so this is what I can pay you. No, that's not good enough. Well, there's a process you've got to go through. But if you talk to the right people, yeah, I've regularly seen 45%, 30, 40%, 45% dropped off. In my own situation, I had a major finance company drop 45% off. They were the most difficult ones. And in the end, I went to their media advisor, told them what they were doing with me, said it was very bad PR. He agreed for them, and he immediately, we had an offer. I made an agreement to pay them back faster, gave them some priority, slashed my debt. There's so much stuff you can do like that. Or even you can just simply serve a legal notice that forces them, and ask me this question with a debt collector. I'll go into the procedure you can do with debt collectors, because it also applies to banks other than negotiating a settlement.
Wow. Okay.
Because a settlement option, you have to have some cash, like borrow from a family member or a friend. But let's say you owe 10 grand. You can probably get them down to 5, 6 grand if you get some cash, or at least a lot quicker over a period of time short, So ask me about debt collectors now.
I will absolutely ask you about that. But with that, Warren, just one thing I've noticed, if people feel that they're starting to get in debt, are they better off speaking to someone earlier rather than later? Are they better off to communicate straight away?
Yes, the worst thing to do is kind of sit there and bury your head in the sand and hope it doesn't come up. You're better off to get on to it immediately. Plan for it's difficult while it's easy,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about debt. Debt in general and common law, where does this sit with you, and how can you look at debt, and how can you use debt, and how can you use common law to reduce debt where possible?
Basically in terms of debt. Okay, so let's say you're getting harassed by a debt collector. Debt collectors know the game too. They know that basically if you go broke, they're not going to get much money. So how they work is intimidation, and they're very good at it. And one of the things they're taught to do, and the way they do it is very clever. They just keep ringing you, and they keep ringing you, and they keep ringing you. And that private number shows up on your phone. Has anyone ever gone through that type of wire? And they don't stop. And subconsciously, it starts to stress you after a while. You start not wanting to answer your phone. You start twitching it off, and you have this inner fear hit you at the thought of seeing that phone actually ringing and things like that. And so what starts to happen is they keep doing, because they know eventually you're going to ring them and probably pay them or give them something and give them priority. So I'll give you an example of the exact situation. I was dating a girl 10 years ago or 12 years ago. Yeah. She was being harassed. And there's a few companies that I won't name that are very bad. They really hit hard. And this one particular company was vicious. They were ringing her constantly. They were pressuring her. You got to do this, or we're going to do this, and you got to do that. And what I actually did was I just rang them and I said, well, I'm a lawyer at the time, which I was. I said, we know how the game works. I said, you're not going to get your payments like you're asking. That's all I said to them. And I shut up. They go, well, she's got to do it and we'll go after her. And I said, you won't be doing that, because you and I both know you won't be getting anything out of them. And I said, because she doesn't have the money to pay. I said, I'm sure you've done your research to see her financial position. He goes, well, yes. But he said, we want something. He said, I'm aware of that. And I said at the time, she can pay you $20 a week. He goes, it's not good enough. I said, you have to just take what you're given. That's what I said to him. And I said, well, and I said, so I'll be sending you a written notice after this on behalf of her. But I said, you'll be taking it. And that's all I said to him. And the guy goes, well, what if we don't? I said, well, obviously you can sue her, but you know, if you really want to go to that expense when you're not going to get any money, good luck to you.
Exactly.
All you're doing is harassing someone needlessly, and she is willing to pay you and get started on the process. And in 6 months' time, we'll review the arrangement. He goes, okay, we can do that. Will she give her word that she'll make those payments on time? I said, yes, I'll tell her that. And obviously, if she breaks her word, then you can get back to ringing her up all the time. But you're going to agree to stop ringing her if she makes the payments. He goes, done. Bingo.
Bingo. There you go. Take action instead of burying your head.
Who likes that, by the way? Who finds that a useful tip?
Yeah, definitely put it in the comments, and please do put your questions in the Q&A box. We will address them at the end of this, okay? Once we've got some.
And there is a process to deal with this. I'm kind of sharing the big picture to help you understand it, but yes, that's kind of why in the course that I want to teach people the process to do this practically. There is a process.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about sovereignty. Common law teaches on personal sovereignty, okay? So how have you applied this philosophy into protecting your privacy, which I know many of us are worried about, and, you know, but basically being like a ghost in the eyes of the system, but also while you're able to function in it. So, you know, the Matrix, the movie, it's like you use it to your ability, but at the same time, you want to be as private as possible. So how do you use common law for privacy?
Okay, privacy is a little bit of a difficult beast. And 20 years ago was very different. I mean, the ability to set up very private accounts and things like that was very easy. Now it's really hard. So I just go back to basics of that. Number one, if someone really wants to find out about you, they will. That's just the reality. It's not hard to do it. There's a very good book I read years ago by a private investigator about how to trace anyone. And it's an amazing book. And he told exactly how he used to do it. And I read there and I thought, gosh, you know, it was very clever. So pretty much, I was max somebody about how to, you know, something about tracing assets, how to trace anyone's assets or something like that. I can't remember, max someone. And I kind of go, yikes. So I always say you want to keep yourself off the radar by and large by, you know, you have what's called your front thing, which you're comfortable with the system knowing about. And then there's things you do privately. Like, for example, that's why people got a lot of wealth, having an offshore nest egg. And this is where people don't get it. A lot of people are like, well, why would I do this? It's costing me money, you know, but I'm like, hang on a sec. It's not going to save you taxes in Australia, but you've got money, but it's very hard for governments to do anything about. You know, it means that if the government go feral, you're not going to take all your money off you because at least you got some money overseas, you know. So it's little things like that. At least using some kind of, you know, crypto or wallets, hardware wallets. I mean, although they can technically be traced, someone has to be pretty committed. Doing things like getting a good cybersecurity expert to protect your data and protect your site, making sure you have proper passwords and things like that. You know, we learned the hard way by one little mistake we made, and then we had to fix up the problems that came out of it, you know. So more on that kind of stuff. It's just practical stuff. Everything else I can give a lot of ones. That one is just really a bit of common sense, you know, and the whole idea you can disappear unless you're willing to get rid of your smartphone, you know, go to cash, go to bartering and live off grid. There's really, you are going to have some system connection, but you know, that's how I see it.
I do feel that space as well is going to grow quite a bit. I think a lot of people will start to innovate a lot in that area as we, I think people probably will, to be honest, but
absolutely.
Yeah, it's already happening. It's just really knowing that it works and then enough people will get on board and things like that. Okay, so we're going to get to some questions soon, no problems. And we will talk about the course shortly. Now, there is a story about someone who was harassing Grace at one time, your former wife, in a shop. Could you share what happened and how you legally dealt with the situation?
That was one of my favorites, you know, where years and years ago, like Grace, at the time we were married, we're now business partners and very close, but, you know, we kind of decided not to stay married as in living in the house, but we were at one stage and we had young kids and Grace organised a bed for, you know, our youngest son. And we got rid of the other bed. So they said, look, we're only going to buy it if you can give us your assurance it will be here by tomorrow at this time. And if you can do that, we'll buy it, we'll pay for it right now. I just want a bed for him by then. And they absolutely assured her, gave her every assurance, and she asked numerous times. And she fortunately had a friend with her at the time at the shop, and they assured her. it never turned up. It hadn't turned up. And then basically, or she gets this call at this weird time when she said to him, do not, as long as you're going to show me, it won't be at this time either, because I won't be around and I won't be there to receive it and the house will be locked. So the exact time she said not to, they ring her and she explained that. They said, well, our delivery guy is out there right now. And so if you don't do it, we can't do it today. And of course, she rings very distressed the manager. And not only were they not helpful, they were quite insulting. The manager said, well, we would never do that. We would never agree to a time, a delivery driver. And she said, no, this happened. And she even said, I don't believe you. And we don't appreciate when our customers lie to us, stuff like that. And Grace was very distressed. And she came to me, and I had my law firm at the time. And I had a lawyer working for me who was a dirty dog. Like, I love this guy. He could be a nasty piece of shit, And I said to him, hey, I said, you want me to let you off your leash? She goes, oh, yeah. I said, you want to have some fun with me? I said, we're going to teach these little buggers a lesson. And, we said, so we hit him with a legal notice. I said, I want you to write the sternest, strictest, most brutal legal notice you can hit him with. So just hit it, fax it through to them. Let's see what happens. We did. Oh, even now they're ringing and very upset and, all this kind of stuff. And he said, I don't really care what you're saying. He said, you've done this. And he said, you've accused her of basically being a liar. And he said, we don't appreciate it. We have a witness. We have evidence. They said, we have every intention of going to fair trading about you extortionate, unfair commercial harassment and unconscionable. And he just hit him every legal term. And then he rings her back an hour later, had the girl in tears, like literally crying, like, why are you doing this to me? And he said, refund the client her money, do exactly what you said you would do. And we'll obviously won't do it, but you will be refunding the money, every cent to my client. And if you don't, absolutely, we will go nuclear. And wow. And then they emailed us back very quickly saying, look, we are going to give a full refund, but we're very unhappy. And they gave this really not very nice thing where it's kind of like a final dig. And he sent them a legal notice back saying, your comments here are considered defamatory towards my client. We are concerned that, and he went through a whole lot of stuff about this and had her ringing up really almost in tears. He even said to me, Grace being Asian, what do you reckon about me talking about racial prejudice? I said, okay. I said, that would be funny, but let's leave that one out. I said, let's show them a little bit of about I'd give them the money back because that would be fun. He goes, we can accuse them, but they did it to her because she's Asian and that they're being racist. And then say we're going to report them. I said, no. I said, we'll show some mercy. And we had them begging us and apologizing. And and that was fun, and got the money back and taught them a lesson.
A bit of justice, right? A little bit of justice, a little bit of common sense.
Who thinks that's pretty cool?
I think everyone loves it. I think if anyone has a problem, they probably want to give you a call, Warren. But the whole point is that we know what to do and we get self-empowered. So we need to join up the course.
That's the idea. My view is I'm very kind to people. That's why I do a lot of free webinars to help as many people as I can. I don't like seeing people. That's why with COVID, I did a lot of free webinars. I didn't like seeing people being coerced and stuff. I didn't like that. But, when someone starts doing stuff like that, and I even once had a client who was disabled, and this company was like refusing to give her gym equipment she paid for and trying to turn legalities on them. And I remember ringing them and I said to them, what's going on here? We got the invoice. And I started trying to give a legal technicality. And I said, I don't think you're understanding why I'm calling you. This was really fun, Jazz. And I said, the issue is not whether my client will get the equipment, because they'll get it. It's how much pain you're going to go through before they get it.
Yeah.
And the guy was in shock. He just didn't know what to say. He goes, well, and he started saying, I said, I don't mind either way. I said, I don't mind being an absolute arsehole with you, because I said, people who do this to someone who's disabled deserve a lot of suffering. So I said to them, I'll happily make your life misery as a company. I said, the other option is you have 24 hours and just do what you promised my client, but everyone's happy. You got 24 hours, my friend, and I hung up on him. And then I followed up with a legal notice, and within 24 hours, the gym equipment was there, all done. Easy.
Beautiful, beautiful. So good. Now, I really do want to get to some questions because we've got 6 there, but I've got one more. This is really, really important. We've got a lot of parents who watch, and especially with what's happened in the world, there's a lot of bullying. Bullying's just increased, as we know. It's a really, really big problem. So have you had to deal with anyone or your children with school bullying, and how quickly were you able to fix the situation? And if we have parents in disarray, children are getting bullied, what can they do? Because at the end of the day, obviously there's something happening that they're not there present for. We've got teachers that are just sometimes useless, principals. What can we do if a child is being bullied, or if they're being ones who are bullying?
Yes. Look, this is a big one for me because I was bullied like when I was in school for primary. I remember being chased into the toilets and for a year, and it was very traumatic for me at the time, and on and off went through my primary school years. And then, years later, I went through all kinds of psychotherapy to, deal and get empowered. So I'm big on this stuff. So I was really, really big on, teaching my kids to be self-empowered and also to deal with it, in a situation where, and the school I went to, fortunately, was very good. I can remember there was a bullying incident with one of my kids. I went and saw them straight away, and all I said to them was, obviously there's a duty of care. We're just going to get this sorted. They said, absolutely. Let's get this sorted. Had the kid in, and it was sorted and ended. And then we had a situation where there was a housekeeper, single mum, very distressed. One of her older son was getting horrifically bullied. And so I said to her, look, let me go down to school and sort it out. So I went down to school, had a chat with them, and they were really good. They got onto it quickly. But I do know that one of my other friends who had the same situation, and his daughter was bullied. They pushed her around, and they even grabbed her lunchbox, tipped it all out, and they grabbed her bus money so she couldn't go home. And she came home crying. And he went down to the school because he knew his legal rights, he knew it. And he just said to them, well, what are you going to do about it? And they said, oh, well, and they kind of went through various kind of trying to pass the buck, and we've got to get the full story. And he said to them, okay, he said, you have a legal duty of care. I'm sure you're aware of this, to avoid any foreseeable harm to my daughter, which right now you're breaching. And straight away, this kind of stuff. He said, okay, that's fine. He said, I think I'm just going to go to the police, or, I'll go and have a chat to my lawyer about this because clearly you're not listening to me. And the principal jumped up, no, please, no, okay. We do have a policeman in the school. We'll get them in right now. And the whole thing was sorted in record time, and we've had people who've, you serve a notice on the school, you just drop the written notice that you have the right wording about the duty of care, and miraculously, because schools are very aware they've got a duty of care, very aware.
Absolutely.
And bullying is relatively, sorry to interrupt, but bullying is relatively easy to stop in a school when you know you're right. So it's one of the easier ones.
Yeah. Warren, you're dropping these things like legal notices, written notices. Are these things that you're going to be covering in the course? Because a lot of people don't know where to start and don't know how to do this.
You bet.
Yes? All right, good. Now we're going to get to some questions. We do have this 13-week course coming up. It's going to be starting on February 2nd. And this is going to be 13 weeks. If you want to know common law, if you want to understand, this is just a nice introduction today to understand what Warren's experience is. We're going to drop the link below. It's only $250. There is an early bird price right now up until Australia Day. Please share this Australia-wide.
Yeah.
The more empowered people, the better Australia is going to be. It is not about, this is the greatest pushback that we can do as a country, as a people in our home, to be empowered, to learn, and to stop wasting our time on things that we honestly do not have control over. Would you agree, Warren?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Just one thing I do want to mention, because one of the things in the course we're doing is I'm deliberately keeping the price very, very low. It's 13 weeks. The link has all the 13 weeks, what we'll be covering in depth. It's going to be deliberately keeping it low. I've done an affiliate also. I want to kind of say this integrity because I want to get the word out. The money that we're making from it, I want to be putting a lot of the money aside, for more empowering stuff. If you have been referred by someone to come and they've given you a link, just obviously do that. I want to make sure that anyone in integrity who's basically, told us I'll get the word out for us and given our word that will help share the wealth, because I'm all about sharing the wealth with this, I'm really big on this. Just use their links to make sure that no one who's been an affiliate misses out. But yeah, the course is going to be in depth. So I'll go through the at the end of this thing, just before but first, should we answer the questions, Jazz, and then I'll go through the course?
Just go through some questions. So I'll walk you through. So we've got one from Lisa. With the new WA laws that have been passed, if they were to bring back in mandates, masks and experimental drugs, can you get around it still with common law? Same that if employers ask you to do something along these lines you do not want to do, can you still get around it now? Thanks.
Look, my honest answer to that one, Lisa, is this is the neo-Morpheus situation, you really do want to, at the end of the day, there's limits to common law with that kind of stuff. Where common law does come in is first and foremost to actually compel people to wear that goes against common law. There's no question about that. Does this mean that that's the best way to handle it? Depends on the situation. With police, I didn't do that. I actually read the mandates from cover to cover, because the way law works is that there has to be a remedy. This is the Uniform Commercial Code. So I've never come across any law without a remedy. I mean, the only one that had difficult that I've ever come census, that one's a bit harder, but the rest of them, there's always remedies. And I found numerous ways with the mandates, with masks, everything like that to get around it. So generally, if you actually read the mandates, like what my friend did with the teacher, with his wife, there's ways around it. I mean, you'll generally find ways around it. And the thing is to move quickly. Like the biggest mistake people made with that was people lived in a kind of what I call a fantasy hope, like the government would never do this. And you remember I said to you, they are going to coerce vaccines and they are going to coerce masks. So I was going and sorting this out very early on when people were convinced it wouldn't happen. So the main thing is that when you see mandates that come out, move quickly, deal with it before things get settled, because government departments, the wheel takes a while to turn. And once they got their act together, they were hastily shutting down doctors and giving any more exemptions. But there was a period of time that doctors were giving them quite freely if you went to the right doctor. So a lot of it is acting quickly, taking strategy. So yes, you can get around it with common law, but also applying it with real common sense and working within the system, because running around yelling at cops doing common law, all you're going to do is put yourself on the radar. Employers are a little bit easier. I find with employers, I just get simply back to a bit of a common sense again, like reading a contract, finding out what they're allowed to do. And basically, by and large, you know, legal fighting, I always argue wasn't going to work, because I said courts aren't going to hold in favor. You've just got to basically, I mean, people said, what would you do? I said, I would be hastily looking at other work in the background, because my employer's enforcing this on me, they're an arsehole. But I'd say in the meantime, I'd certainly be doing everything I can to force them to keep paying me while I'm looking for other work. So that's how I'd be dealing with it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This one's a little bit more borderline financial advice, so just let us know if you can't answer it.
Yeah.
How can you legally extend, reduce, or get around a due date for paying 50K ATO debt, sale of investment property, especially when they've only given 10 months?
Tax is a different story, because an ATO debt is by and large very contractual. It's already taken place, and property is as in the system as you're going to get. And I always tell people, if you've got a property debt, there's not a lot you can do other than see your accountant who knows what they're doing and get the maximum creative planning, you know? That's the general rule. You know, there's not an awful lot you can do when it comes. Property is the worst and hardest things to do an awful lot about. It's why I don't do a lot of tax planning anymore around property. The governments control that system well and truly, and there's not a lot you can do legally apart from just making sure you're structured right in the beginning and things like that.
Yeah, look, Nick's got a great question here, and this is really pertinent, I think, to a lot of people and what they're thinking. So common law groups are talking about the following. What are your thoughts? Unincorporating yourself, Bob Hawke creating a new corporate commonwealth and abandoning the original commonwealth, which apparently still exists and can be reclaimed. No laws since 19-something have been assented by the Queen, and therefore are they invalid? I'm dubious about all of this.
Oh, look, you're getting into a legal argument there. So, I mean, it's kind of like going up to the fox who's taking control of a chicken coop and saying to the fox, hey, dude, you shouldn't be here. And, you know, and the fox goes, oh, okay, well, I'll get together a committee of 3 other foxes and then we'll make a ruling on it. And that's my metaphor I give with this one. I mean, it may be true, it may not be, but you've got to be really committed to engaging laws and, you know, engaging a lawyer or learning the law and being an Aaron Brockovich, you know, and if you're going to do that, hats off to you, you know, because, look, I do think there's some truth in that. I looked into all this kind of stuff. For example, the 1915 Income Tax Act was never really properly amended, and from what I can see, but no one actually has to legally pay taxes in Australia, you know, it's only liable to corporations. And then the Commonwealth, there's all kinds of issues about the corporate Commonwealth, and that's not a real Commonwealth. There's so many things about that. But in saying all that, in practice, I mean, look, if someone does that and is willing to go that path, hats off to them, you know, you've got to be very committed. For me, I'd rather find simple hacks around the system, live a normal life, and just enjoy my dancing, enjoy my work, and just without having to do crap and pay stuff I don't want to be paying, you know, and there are hacks you can work within the system. So I think you may well have a point. I just think you got to be pretty committed to go that path.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks for that. So Ben's got a couple of questions. So Ben's saying people are using our Commonwealth Constitution in the court. some are winning and some are losing. Is this where the key is to standing as a living man or woman? And are statutes enforceable? How do we discern between acts and statutes, if you can answer anything?
Well, the Constitution, the issue you've got is that if you read Howard Freeman's UCC connection, they'll be showing a bit about that. One of the best teachers in that area years ago. Now, it's not mainly for America, but it's some little bits and pieces that the guy has given. I mean, if you've got a corporate government, a corporate commonwealth, in theory, the Constitution's gone. But they live the illusion to make people think it still exists. I mean, there's actually that argument, you know, and constitutions are really just a kind of agreement between the people and citizens, which, you know, if government stop enforcing it in the court, you've got a bit of an issue. Me, I wouldn't, unless I read the Constitution and found a clear legal argument, you know, that was obvious in that Constitution, I wouldn't use it. If I did find a clear legal argument, I'd use it. So, for example, my view is that the Constitution does have some clear arguments. For example, there's some arguments at least on, you know, vaccines. You know, I don't think they're very strong, but there's enough arguments in there that if someone was committed enough to at least give it a shot. Statutes, well, statutes, again, this is getting into the whole thing. This is one of the things my course is avoiding. And I'll be very upfront. If you're looking for kind of a magic pill for saying, I'm not going to do any statutes anymore, this isn't the right course for you. Because what I say to people is that, yes, in theory, I mean, statutes are coercing. In theory, the government had no right to coerce you into a vaccine, but they got away with it. And they were able to, by and large, do it with most people. And they're winning in their court cases. Now, sure enough, in time, you know, things might happen and there may be a witch hunt in Nuremberg. I don't know, but that's just the reality. And I like dealing with realities. You know, for me, the course is more to help people who are like, look, I just want to live a normal life. I want to raise my kids. I want to go put them in school. I don't want to be bullied. I want to run my business. I want to, you know, make some money, enjoy life and live a reasonably good life without basically having governments and other people make my life misery. That's kind of what I'm looking at doing it. For someone who's kind of wanting to go into a whole lot of legal complexities about statutes and that, you'll get a little bit of that, but probably not as much as you're going to like. And I'll be upfront with that. There's going to be other courses that will excite you, get you going on that path and giving it a bang. My view, having done years of it, seeing many people in the area, trying a few things myself, in practice, it's a hit and miss and more likely than not won't work. And the people who end up doing it all admit to me years later that if they had their time again, they probably wouldn't do it because it was exhausting, it was draining, and they found a better way to go. So really, I'm teaching the better way to go for those who are just like, you know what, I just want a straightforward way that's going to work for most of my life. You know, if you kind of want to give it a shot and see if you can be the one that makes a difference that others haven't done, then please be my guest. I'll be the first to applaud you. It's just not what we're teaching there. You know, it's like statutes by and large, it's all very well to say, I don't comply with these statutes, but, you know, the main thing you'll learn is to understand with statutes, for example, that there are certain statutes that you won't have to comply with, for example, like legal practice law. There's ways to deal with that statute, or APRA. There are ways around it. Most statutes, there's many ways around complying with it. So that's the thing to realize, and ways to not come under the jurisdiction. But there are many statutes that by implication, under even common law, you're under the jurisdiction. So this is what I'm saying. It's not a straightforward answer. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And if you are really wanting to look into depth what we will be covering, please click on the link actually in the chat box, because that breaks down week by week what Warren's going to be covering. So that will really give you a good idea and indication of what we're teaching. Now, this course, is it covered with a written transcript? I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I think we can do it. All we have to do is that we've got our transcription technology. So I think the answer is going to be a yes. I think all we would do is just make sure that it will be automatically, you know, transcribed. So I think the answer can be a yes to that. I don't see any reason we can't do that.
Excellent. And Lisa's asked, will the 2-day course be out before the 26th of Jan? So I want you to do it.
Not. No, because the idea is that I want to first do the foundational online training, and then we'll do the and then do the 2-day course towards the end when people have got the foundational teaching. So those who do it. So there's 2 parts to this. Right now, we're just simply offering the 13-week online course, and then throughout it, we're going to be offering the 2-day workshop as well towards the end for people who really want to come, put the stuff in practical use, get some practical guidance face-to-face, kind of in a small workshop room, you know, maybe 15, 20 people at most, you know, something like that. And even obviously, you know, without being online, I could probably share a few more things, you know, but yeah, that's basically. like anything,
And
when you
also,
face-to-face, you always get certain things shared more naturally, not because I'm holding anything back.
yeah, definitely. And also you'll be updated anyway, through, email and things like that.
Yeah.
If you, our website and our newsletter list. So yeah, look, I think this is almost going to wrap up to this evening then. If there's anything else for you to share, I really, really ask for all of you. Number one, who's actually purchased a ticket here to come for the 13 weeks? Is there anyone here in the group that's watching? Because there's 50 of you. Put a yes if you're there. Put a yes if you're going to. And if you're going to share it with other people, please put a yes, because honestly, this is not about making money. This is honestly about empowering Australia, getting back to the basics. And, there's no one better than Warren. I just want to quickly share my personal testimony. Prior to joining with the Global Wealth Club and Warren and the team here, honestly, guys, I was a part of every group, underground, overground, whatever ground you can think of, trying to figure my way through life. And coming here has given me the most balanced approach. It has empowered me. I am so much more empowered in myself, my spirit, my body, and my knowledge now. And that is simply because I put the time to be educated, listen, surround myself around the right people. So I really want to encourage all of you to take the plunge, jump in with us, and let's all learn together.
Oh, look, it's amazing. Thank you so much, Jazz. No, look, my biggest thing too, I'll share one final thing on this that really drove me into this one, was that as you know, I spent a lot of time activism and helping awaken people. And when it all was ended, I remember thinking I was pretty down for a while, because I thought, what was the point of all that, Like, where do we go from here? I felt helpless as a man, really, who has a natural instinct in the man is we want to protect society and help people. And eventually I realized I've got to come from another direction, giving things back doesn't really work, And I thought, you know what, the one answer is to empower people. If we can empower lots of people and do it at an affordable price for just about anyone to do. And I mean, I go as far as to say, I said this last, I'll say it again. And obviously I'm trusting people to do the right thing here, but if you really are in genuine financial hardship and want to do it, and you email us and just put the support email in the chat, and say to us the price you can pay, and obviously do the right thing by us at that one. But if you really genuinely like that, we will simply do it, we will honor that. We've done that for a few people already, because I just want people to be able to come. We're charging something because I do believe that you value what you pay for, number one.
Absolutely.
Number two means we can share the wealth with people who promote it. Number three, we can get a whole lot of, look, if we sell it to a large volume, we will have a fair bit of money behind us to go ahead and do some awakening, to really expand the work we're doing and get bigger and things like that. And so, look, and for you, if it's important for you to share the wealth, for some of you, I know you're just like, you know what, I don't need to share the wealth. I just want to get it out and let you guys do it so you can use it for your awakening. For some of you, like, actually, it'd be great to share it and get an affiliate link, because then I can also, share a little bit, and it will help me in my position as well. So by all means, if you want to share it and get an affiliate link, there's a support email which is listed in there. You just email them and our team will get straight onto it and give you your private affiliate link to make sure that you get something. So absolutely. We just want to get the word out. To me, I'd love like thousands of people to do this course. It would be so cool, because and like I said, at the end of the day, I mean what I'm saying there. If you actually genuinely like, what, I feel bad, writing and saying I can only pay this, but I'd rather you do that and come to it and give you a bit less, and charge a bit less. Or even if you said, look, I'm really in such a bad way, this is all I can give. End of the day, if you're sincere, we'll do it, because I just want people to do it. So I hope that makes sense,
No, it makes sense. And the reality is that's the truth of it. We're not here to rip anyone off. We're here to really make a difference. So just show up, share it. There's lots
please
of
do. For me, I want to push people to show up. Sorry, Jazz, but I want to push people to show up. That's why I thought if I get charged some big price, I mean, look, people said to me, why didn't you charge 500 or 1,000? I said, well, obviously I could have charged it, but I'm like, that's like, I specifically want to deliberately charge a ridiculously low price for this, for the absolute best, to get the word out more. And look, I mean, if we do a 2-day workshop, it will cost obviously a bit more, because I'll be face-to-face sitting with people. That'll be a whole different story for that one, But absolutely. And Jess, thanks for all the work you do, and everyone here who's just promoting it. I appreciate you, because someone said about the men stepping up. I agree. Let's just empower people. Many people, I believe, want to step up. I honestly think there's many people who you wanted to help out, but you felt powerless. And if you felt that way, said me, you know, because you actually wanted to, but you just didn't know what to do. And so, you know, if so yeah, if you, so that's the whole point. I think there's so many people who wanted to push back and who wanted to help out and wanted to make a difference. So look, there's no doubt they're coming again. There's no doubt that as we hit a bit of a recession this year and as different things happen, look, I don't have any doubt we're going to see another round in some form. I don't think we'll see it quite the same way like we saw before, but I think we'll be seeing different angles. And I think they'll be a little bit worse if I gave my unfortunate opinion. So I do think people need to be absolutely empowered with this. I really do.
That's it. Yes, Joanne. One quick note. Jeannie asked, if you miss a session, will you be able to watch a replay? Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'll confidently say my eventual aim is that if this gets a lot of people do this, and it looks pretty good so far, I mean, it may become an ongoing course. We may continue to offer it and things like that, because as I see it, we've got a short window of time to empower as many people as we can in the Western world, especially in Australia, because for me, my number one concern, it goes in order, like obviously me, then my family, then my state, then my country, and then the rest of the world, you know? So if you're in US, it will definitely help you quite a bit. If you're in Australia, it will especially help you, you know? So
well, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick because I just had a thought, and this is literally putting you on the spot. What about the youth and what about some homeschools? If anyone here has homeschool groups, youth or anything like that, would you be willing to run a specific common law course for the youth specific to what problems they're facing right now within their young age? Would you be willing?
Funny enough you say that. I really want to do the same thing, you know, and say to Edward, we can do one together, you know. So I'm very interested in doing that because youth are great. They listen and they learn, and the youth really, you know, a child who knows their common law rights, like I said to my son, you guys learnt them. You know, you're blessed, but think of how many youth got so traumatized by what happened, you know, whereas these guys have sailed through it.
Jeannie's just said, yes, she's involved in homeschooling. Jeannie, reach out to our team here. If anyone else is involved in homeschooling or for youth or whatever, we're going to also do something in that space. Reach out to us. We just want to make sure that there's some people that can jump on and we'll organize that, okay? Oops, I'm messaging the host and the panelists. I'm getting in trouble because I'm doing the wrong thing. That's typical, isn't it? So Ed, help me out over here. I'm right. If you, thank you, Jeannie. If you are involved with any youth, homeschool, or you just want to know more, hit up us at support@globalwealthclub.com.
Oh, look, thank you, everyone. Like I said, we just want to, look, all I know is that I did say this to someone, this is a bit of a deeper thing, but I said, the reason that Trump was able to make some difference to America was because he had a big brand, he had a word out, and then he got out there. And I'm saying, who knows what can come out of this? You know, we could actually, you build a big enough impact, you can really start to impact all areas of society, you know, government, everything. And that's where I'm going for. I've got a big vision, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Monique, just share it with whoever, share it. You've got the affiliate code, so let's go for it. It has been such a pleasure to be back on with everyone tonight. January 2023, this is going to be a year that we're going to be educated, empowered, and we're going to continue to show up for one another. So thank you so much, Warren, for always showing up, being here as your beautiful self. Thank you so much to everyone, and we will see you shortly. If you have any questions, reach out. We're here to help. Bye,
awesome.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Warren. See you, team.
Bye.
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 To kick the habit that my mind is breathing in.